Hello and welcome back for the fourth installment of the Early River Valley Civilization. This is your host, Coach Bowman, and today we will be discussing part four, which is dealing with Judaism. I'm trying to get my little option guy out of the way. So, the religion of Judaism, part four. Make sure you have your notes ready, and here we go. So Judaism begins when we start looking at the early forms of religion with a guy named Abraham. Abraham is believed to be the father or founder of the monotheistic religion, the monotheistic ideas of believing in one God, and this is the foundation for the three major world religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And of course, these religions will drastically change the world and still continue to do so today. So, one of the things that I discussed with my students this week regarding the Hebrews is keep in mind that the Hebrews are also known as Jews or also known as Israelites. These names all refer to the same people who were the first to believe in monotheism. They were the first monotheists. So to talk about Abraham, you need to talk about how, yes, he is the, quote, father of monotheism or the founder of monotheism. But for Abraham, according to the scriptures, tends to have to prove his faith to his God, Yahweh, multiple times. The two major ones that people tend to remember are the fact of him being told to move from the city of Ur in Sumer, the southern part of Mesopotamia, all the way across to the Promised Land, also known as Canaan, or later on Israel. The other major one, as you see in the painting there directly to the left, is him attempting to sacrifice his son based on what God asked him to do. And in the last spare second, God sends an angel down to stop Abraham from sacrificing his oldest son. So again, with these multiple tests of faith, God does promise him that he will have descendants as numerous as the stars, according to the scriptures. So from this part, his descendants will create Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Another key character, one of my favorites, is the figure of Moses. Moses was born during a time where the Jews were slaves in Egypt. Kind of fill you in between Abraham and Moses' time, there was a major drought in Canaan, and so the Hebrews journeyed over to Egypt, where the Nile allowed great farmland. And during that time, he was born. Jews had been enslaved for about 500 years in Egypt, and so it definitely was a tough position for Moses to be in, because when he was born, there was a prophecy that one of the early newborn Jews would rise up and overthrow the Pharaoh. So the Pharaoh ordered for all the early or what's the best word? Newborn Jewish boys to be executed. And so Moses' mother, as you see in this first picture right here, put him in the basket and sent him down the Nile, where lo and behold, the Pharaoh's daughter was there and saved Moses, adopted Moses, and basically raised him as part of the royal family, getting all the benefits of being in a wealthy family, especially being of the royal bloodline. So he was well educated. He ended up becoming almost third in command. His uncle became Pharaoh eventually, and basically promoted Moses to be in charge of civil building projects. So he was in charge of the slaves, which happened to be Jews. He then is visited by God, and his true identity is revealed that he is a Jew. And so in turn, he becomes God's messenger or prophet, and he asked his uncle multiple times to let the Jews go. And of course, being that you have a large number of Jews that are free laborers. The Pharaoh says, no, this is crazy. And so then, according to the scriptures, God sends several plagues to Egypt and put Egypt through the ringer, if you will. And eventually the Pharaoh says yes. So Moses does free the Jews from slavery. And this is the famous parting of the Red Sea that you see here on the bottom left. And then that allows the Jews to cross the Red Sea, according to the scriptures, into Canaan. And then here's a couple images of Charlton Heston, the famous actor who plays Moses in the Ten Commandments. And of course, once the Jews get to the other side and realize that they are free from the Egyptians is when Moses receives the Ten Commandments. Again, we've talked about this before. This is when we have the moral law code of the you should and should not. So what are some traditions, beliefs, and customs of Judaism? Again, starting with the idea of one God, that's monotheism. And for the Jewish faith, that God is known as Yahweh. You have the Torah, which is the holy book of the Jews. And in that book has the records, basically the histories of the Jewish people, their beliefs, their customs, specifically their prayers, certain traditions and rites, what they can and cannot do, especially when it comes to eating. You have the very traditional views of not eating pork. According to the scriptures, any consumption of an animal that has a split hoof is seen as unclean meat, and so in turn, they should not eat those. Again, the Ten Commandments, again, these are the religious and moral code of conduct that the Hebrews follow. And if you're familiar with the Ten Commandments specifically, you'll notice that it says that one should or should not do certain things. And again, this is the idea of free will. This is the idea of knowing what's right and what's wrong. And so, again, it's one of those things that it's your choice on how to act. And that's the interesting part about the Ten Commandments. Here is a traditional view of the Torah. Again, the Torah is the holy book. This will be in what's called a synagogue or temple to the Jews. The church, it's what a church is to Christians, or a mosque is to a Muslim. The synagogue is to the Hebrew or Jewish individual. So how does this religion spread? Two major events, what's called exile. Again, this is when someone is, or a group of people are forced to leave, primarily due to a punishment. And the other one is diaspora. Diaspora happened twice for the Jewish people when the Babylonians took over Palestine and Jerusalem, as well as the Romans later on when they expand their empire. Both of these, the exile and diaspora, make sure you understand this, that when the Jewish people leave the Middle East or leave Jerusalem or Palestine or Canaan, they're going to take their religion with them. So in this map here, all these red arrows, the Jewish people travel to, they take their religion with them. And this is something that is kind of interesting. It's part of your culture. So you take your culture with you no matter where you travel. And that will conclude our part 4. And I will continue on. I'm not going to stop here. I'm going to continue on and go ahead and continue on with part 5, the development of language and writing. Part 5 is very short, so there's no need for me to stop. So I'm going to keep going and finish this up. But writing is very important. It's a huge cultural innovation. It's probably one of the biggest achievements, because without writing, traditions will be passed down orally, meaning from telling the stories from grandma to grandpa, and from son to daughter, or whatever the case might be, father to son, mom to daughter, but you wouldn't have anything written down. And so things can be elaborated, things can be added or deleted. And so by writing things down, it becomes more solidified, I guess is the best way to put it, in history. This is when we're going to see the increase of the importance of the job known as a scribe. A scribe is an individual who writes down the information, usually sits close to the emperor or the king or queen or whoever is dictating. If you're the boss of a company, you probably have a scribe that sits there and writes down the rules and policies and things of that nature. So a scribe becomes very important. And again, as I mentioned in class, this is one of those things that looking back, and some people tend to question if the scribe wrote down exactly everything that the person said. So again, you take it for what it's worth. You hope that what you're reading or learning about is correct and that the scribe got it down correctly. So the oldest language that we know of that historians and archaeologists have discovered is what's called pictograms. Very, very rudimentary, as you see in this stone here that is found. Very basic symbols. No true organization, if you will. It looks like, in my opinion, it's kind of like when a kindergartner draws a picture. And they bring it to you. Here's a picture. And what is it? Looks like a potato with legs and big, long arms. It's you. Yay. Thanks so much. So, again, it's the earliest form of writing. Those early pictures will later on become more complex. And we see this with the writing system of the Egyptians, known as hieroglyphics, that you see directly there at the top right. You can definitely see the birds. You definitely see these images that are here, which are vipers, according to hieroglyphs. Here's a cartouche with someone's name. You got two birds. You got a lion right there. You have all kinds of different symbols. So it's, to me, it's pretty fascinating. But again, hieroglyphs are symbols or images. Some you can see there are carved into stone. Some are painted onto papyrus, which is a plant that they used and made paper out of in Egypt. So again, this is their writing system. As we travel further east and go into Mesopotamia, we will discover their writing system known as cuneiform or cuneiform. However you want to pronounce it, doesn't matter to me. But as long as you understand that it's the wedge-shaped writing, and you might not say a lot of wedge shapes, but like right here is a good example, and then up here is a good example as well. The other symbols and stuff are used. You see some other wedge-shaped triangular type writing here on the bottom left of that stone. But your circles and your looks like crescent moon type shapes are other symbols that they used in their writing system as well. Eventually, the Phoenicians are going to be creating their own alphabet. Their alphabet was primarily used for their trade business, to keep records and things of that nature. And so and eventually it will become what we use. So that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for paying attention and following directions and getting these notes down. I wish you the very best. And this concludes Unit SOL WHI Point 3, the early River Valley systems. Next time we will be discussing the classical River Valley systems, which deals with India, China, and the mighty Persians. Thanks, and stay safe.